Good morning and welcome to Green Pass Gaming's Sunday morning coffee morning with me, your host Flap, and the rest of the GPG crew. We have assembled. It's been a little while. We seem to keep sort of skipping the odd one here and there through work and life commitments, but that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. Yeah, but here we are. We're back this morning, and we'll get straight into it. This morning is kind of an informal chat on anything else. Not really any huge news waves going on at the moment, so I thought we could just have a skip over most of them and see what we all come up with. But let's just do a quick round of introductions, and we'll start with yourself, Pucks, as you're next to me on the screen. How are you, my friend? And what's been going on?
Yeah, good morning, all. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, a little bit sunburnt. I was at a wedding yesterday in a three-piece suit as well, which wasn't very nice in terms of the heat. And I caught the sun, unfortunately, even though I didn't feel like I was in the sun that long. But very strong weather and all that. So I'm a little bit of a tomato this morning. But outside of that, I've been enjoying a lot of PlayStation, actually, since the release of the PS Plus. I've dabbled in a bit of Xbox here and there, but pretty much all of my attention has been playing and catching up on various titles that I not wanted to spend money on when they was on sale during the PlayStation stuff. So no, I can just kind of download them and give them a go at least. I've been dabbling in quite a few different things. So that's been me, really, as a quick summary.
Yeah, no, to be fair, I've been exactly the same. I guess it was always going to be the case. There's quite a few PlayStation games that I'd elected to miss out on because I kind of suspected something like this might be coming along. Now I'm fully catching up with all of those, but perhaps we'll come on to that in a bit. Luke, you're up next, my friend. Yeah, what have you been up to?
Yeah, not too much, actually. So I finished Inscription, which I did earlier last week. Which is brilliant. And then just been kind of floating about, playing stuff. Nothing in particular. Some Forza here and there. Some stuff on the Steam Deck here and there. And that's been about it, really. So no primary game at the moment, but I'm searching for the next one, I think. So
okay, fair enough. And Scott, what have you been up to, my friend?
Yeah, not an awful lot of games, unfortunately, mate. I've had a little bit of a week away this week. I had a week off work. So me and the missus went across the lakes. Unfortunately, got a little bit of a heat stroke while I was there, which wasn't pleasant. But since last week, I've mainly been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm about 5 or so chapters into that at the moment. I completed A Plague's Tale. That was just after last Sunday's show. And obviously the usual multiplayer shenanigans, Fall Guys, Halo, and the like. So I'm looking forward to playing a little bit more Final Fantasy today. It's genuinely, for me, too hot to go outside, so I'm going to close the curtains, try to keep the sun out, and play some games after this.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's come back to each of you in reverse order because you've all said something I want to pick up on. But so, what did you make of Plague's Tale?
Really, really enjoyed it, Flap, and I'm really excited for the second game now. If anything, I would say maybe a little too short. I would like it a little bit more. It was only about 8 to 10 hours, but because I was enjoying it so much, maybe just an extra couple of hours. I wouldn't want it to be like 30, 40 hours or anything like that, but maybe just an extra 2 or 3 maybe on top of it. But I really, really enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than I expected. But it was the Requiem trailer that got me excited. So I thought, right, I really need to play this game. So I really, really enjoyed it. It did. I know you're a big fan, Flap, Puck. So Luke, have you guys completed?
Oh yeah, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I completed it. And it's great. Yeah, really enjoyed it. I think Requiem just looks the same but bigger, better. It looks like a sequel, which is great.
Do we know where they're planning on going with the story? Apologies for spotting in the background there.
I don't think so. I think it's just a straight continuation of the first game, but I don't know what direction that will take.
I'm desperately trying to remember how the story ended.
Yeah, it's been a while now.
Yeah,
something with Hugo and Amicia.
I mean, I'll try to skirt around it a bit, but the final boss is against the matriarch in the church.
Oh yes.
And he's got the different rats. That should hopefully be enough. So I'm curious as to where they go with it, because obviously after you do that, the final bit is kind of them going somewhere with someone. I don't want to spoil it too much in case anyone's saying it. There's a couple of characters that aren't in that final scene. So I'm really curious as to where they go with the story and how they tackle Hugo's ability in the next game. And yeah, it's difficult to talk about when you're trying to skirt around the spoilers of the game, because it is obviously very story focused. But yeah, really excited. And that's October, isn't it, for Requiem? Or September?
It's October, I think. It's October.
Yeah. Really, really looking forward to it.
Well, that's not far off, is it, Blummy? No. Coming up for being halfway through July already, crikey. So, yeah, no, that's cool. I'm pleased you tried it. And, it's always nice when you know about a game and people highly recommend it and you try it and you actually like it. It's like, oh, okay, right, this is what everyone's been on about. Because like you were saying, we can't necessarily go into details as to why it's a good game and stuff on some level. But, well, funny we should mention that because, Luke, I've, on your advice, probably a little while ago now, I downloaded the Inscription demo, and you said it was quite a beefy demo, and it was and is. But I've been playing that this week as well because, funny enough, it's coming to PlayStation as well. I noticed that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a release date, and they haven't announced Xbox or Nintendo yet. But that's a fantastic game, and I'm still playing through it. So you actually completed it this week, did you?
I did, yeah. I think it took about 12 hours in total, so it's not a short game. It's for an indie deck builder. It's actually pretty beefy as a full game, and I'm really glad it's coming. I'm sure we'll get ports for everything. PlayStation's just happens to be the first. Funnily enough, when I put on Twitter that I think had I played the game last year, it would have been very close, if not my game of the year. Even as against Returnal and stuff. I don't quite know which one would have been game of the year. But Daniel Mullins, who created the game, actually liked my tweet, which was quite nice. So that was really cool. Yeah, I can't really say enough about it. And it's a frustrating game to talk about because it goes in places that you just don't expect. And I think that's like half of the enjoyment, particularly these days when kind of games within the first hour you've pretty much done most of the things in the game, and it's just a question of whether you enjoy it enough to do it for the another 20 hours.
Exactly.
Inscription's not really like that. It starts off as one thing and changes to another, and it's got a theme throughout it, which is deck building card stuff, but it's just bonkers, really. I mean, it's just a crazy game. So I'd keep playing it. If you've not bought it, then and you enjoy the beefy demo, then buy it.
I've bought it. I must be halfway through, I think. So it does that fantastic thing where it kind of breaks the fourth wall, and it's like, oh, right, okay. And then you have to get your head around that bit. And it's a great game.
You get past Act 1, and then the way the game is presented changes pretty significantly, and there's all the stuff that comes from that. So,
I'm still to get to that bit then, by the sounds of it.
Oh, okay.
That's quite exciting.
Well,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Not too spoilery that, but it's strange. You'll see. I mean, the whole. I mean, even if the game was just the bit in the cabin, which is where you start, it's so atmospheric in the cabin and like so weird that it would just be amazing just that, but it isn't just that. So just keep playing it.
There's a bit where the hands come and grab you. That freaks the hell out of me. I don't know why.
It's kind of like horror-ish, I guess. The cabin stuff. It has that feeling to it, doesn't it? So
absolutely.
It's brilliant.
Cool. Well, like I say, I was surprised to see it coming to PlayStation, but both pleased. And I thought, well, before it comes to the consoles, I'm going to at least get it all done on Steam and stuff. It'll be a hell of a lot cheaper on Steam. I don't know. I think it's about £16 on Steam, so I don't know what the consoles will be selling it for.
Yeah, it's on sale now on Steam, I think still. So it's about 11 quid now.
Okay.
And I played it purely on the Steam Deck because I think it's kind of the perfect game for that, and it's again brilliant of this. Like the brilliance of the Steam Deck is it doesn't have a supported it doesn't have a default Steam Deck controller configuration, but there's tons of community ones that you just quickly download.
Oh, okay.
And so, it was everything, because it's it's very much a keyboard and mouse game. But someone had very kindly, remapped everything to the touchpads and,
Nice.
mouse clicks were the triggers. It was really intuitive, really cool. So, yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't bring that to the Switch. I mean, perhaps I don't know if that's quite the right market. I don't know, but like you say, it seems to fit nicely into the handheld.
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for it to only come to PlayStation. I imagine maybe they just got the announcement of the console ports, and as like says, it'll probably come. I mean, it didn't even get a date for PlayStation, did it?
No, I thought that was odd. That was a bit odd. Yeah, because when it did, I thought, I'll go and have a look on the Xbox channel, because they tend to, when new games drop, they tend to do it simultaneously. There was just nothing. I was thinking, oh, okay, that's interesting. Then PlayStation have been dropping a hell of a lot of videos lately on their YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Pux, so what have you been playing? I mean, I know you've been trying to catch up on PlayStation Plus. I'm guessing you've got the medium tier. I can't remember what that's called.
No, I've got the top one.
Oh.
I went straight for premium, so I've been enjoying PS1 and PS2 as well.
Go on then, talk us through that.
Okay, well, let's start from the very bottom. So PS1 based stuff. There was also a few things in there which I downloaded for things that I had played in the past, just to see how they played. Like I think Tekken 2 was one of the games I loved way back when. And when I think a lot of the reviews for it was saying that it runs at a nice smooth 60 because it's the NTSC version, not the PAL version.
Okay.
So you kind of get all those nice silky smooth animations, frame rates, all that kind of jazz. And it does play really well. And one of the things that I'd completely forgotten when I've been dabbling in it is the random difficulty spikes you'd seem to get on, like, say, stage 3, for example, when the AI just becomes absolutely monstrous, and you just want to throw the controller again, just like I did way back, because it's a pain in the ass. But no, that's been really good fun, just kind of dabbling in and out of that, because again, that's the kind of game where you do just pick it up for about, say, 10, 15 minutes. You go through a campaign or two of a character, unlock them, and then you can just put it down, which is what I really like about it. Another game I think a lot of us may have played, mainly as a demo disc, if not had the game, was Ape Escape as well. So I remember really loving the demo when that first came out, but I think like a lot of kids in the late 90s, early noughties, the best we got by with was getting the official PlayStation magazine and dabbling through all of your catalog via demo discs. So a lot of I saw a few videos on this as well, which I could definitely resonate with, which was that as kids, a lot of our memories of having played all of these wonderful and weird PS1 games actually only comes from the tiny snippet that you got on a demo disc. So it's actually, I found it quite fun actually jumping into Ape Escape and playing it fully. And I've actually, again, because I've never played it fully, I have no nostalgia for it, which I know we've talked about in the past. I know Luke and Scott are definitely not keen on it. I definitely understand that sentiment. But going back to an older game, which, at least in my opinion, which you hadn't really played but heard good things about, and being able to play it despite the wonky controls, etc., I've actually really enjoyed, to the point at some point, because Ape Escape 2 is also on the PS2 service as well. So part of me is kind of maybe going to jump onto that at some point. But I've mainly been, so those two I've been dabbling in. PS2 side, it's mainly been the Jak and Daxter games. But I already had Jak and Daxter 1. I bought that when it first came out on PlayStation many years ago, as in when it came to PS4. Dabbling into some Jak 2 here and there, which is quite nice.
How does the Jak and Daxter games hold up, Pucks? Because they're the type of games that I just fear just wouldn't hold up in this day and age, which makes me hesitant to go back and play some of those types of games.
If you want an easy to play collectathon, I think Jak and Daxter 1 is, for me, it really does hold up, because
okay, that's good to hear.
I mean, these are, what do they call them? I think Sony call them, they're technically PS4 remasters, I think they call them, but they're not really. They're just kind of PS2 games running on an emulator with a slight up-res. Well, I think that's the intention. But then, at least when I play them, they don't look super crisp and clear. They do look a tad blurry. So you kind of have to get over that in a way. But if you can easily get over that, then for me, they hold up really well, especially Jak and Daxter 1, because that's the one where there's the combat is primitive to today's standards. There's no guns or weapons or anything. It's just like a punch and a spin, and you're just running around the different biomes, really. But I think one of the things that I do like about the first game, which, again, even now, I think is definitely a great marvel, is the fact they kind of the way they designed the game, they managed to avoid any loading screen. So at no point in the game do you ever have a hard cut and transition to load something else. It's all dynamic throughout. And I think that's the biggest part for me, which stands out in terms of its impressiveness and replayability. The combat and just the way it plays definitely holds up for me. I can't necessarily comment on Jak 2 or 3. They are quite long stories if you've not played them before. And I think, again, they had like vehicles and stuff in those ones. And the vehicle controls are definitely wonky. And there's definitely sections where you have to use a vehicle and you're timed as well. So it can be hit and miss, especially when you replay a section. I don't know. I mean, because I've played it before and I loved it, I kind of forgave it. But I can definitely understand anyone who goes into these games thinking, Christ, people really liked this back then. But back then it was really good, right? So we knew no different. So that's kind of what I've been up to on the PS2 front. And I've not dabbled in this in a good couple of weeks now, but I have actually trialed some PS3 streaming as well with I think Ratchet and Clank, a crack in time, I think it's called. That's been good fun. It is a shame, I think. I understand why, but it is a shame that they haven't managed to get around to potentially downloading these games or trying to emulate them locally in some description.
Well,
I appreciate the artists. Yeah, go on.
There was a patent drop recently, wasn't there, where people are suspecting that there may be some hardware emulation on its way to PS5 for PlayStation 3. I don't know if you saw that in the news this week, but
not this week, but I had heard about it in the past. But I kind of do think it's needed. The streaming's okay, but when and I've got a wired connection with our PS4, so I get good speeds and it's a lot better than it was. Because I remember trying PS Now a good couple of years ago when it roughly first came out, paying for or getting a free 1 month trial or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was very ropey. Like the input lag was all over the place. The game selection wasn't great either. So that alone didn't necessarily justify the £9 a month, I think it was. And that was obviously separate at the time to your £10 a month PlayStation Plus, whatever it was. So it was a very weird scenario, kind of looking back on it. But it seems to
glad to hear
a lot.
that's improved. Yeah, because I had the same experience as you, Pucks. I tried it maybe about 18 months ago, and it was honestly unplayable. Even what game? I think I tried to play The Last of Us, and just the input lag. I think the opening scene when you're in a bedroom. Are you in a bedroom? Where you're in a house.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just moving around the house and trying to open doors. It was just... It was really, really bad. And I'm the same as you. I've got a really good connection as well. So I'm glad to hear that's improved a little bit. But out of interest, guys, the PS3 emulation, obviously it's cloud-based at the moment. How are they... Have they just got PS3s hooked up in the cloud? Or are they just using some sort of emulation based on PC? Because surely they don't have original PS3 hardware being used, so they must be emulating it on some hardware. And I believe you can emulate PS3 games on PC at the moment. So surely there's a future where PS3 games can just be natively ran on. Surely the PlayStation 5's powerful enough to emulate PS3 games.
Did you see the patent that was submitted?
I saw the headline. I didn't read it in too much detail though, Flap.
Well, as these images and patents are they it was very vague, but the one thing it did say, it said cell processor. So everyone's thinking, oh, well, this must be PlayStation 3, native PlayStation 3 emulation on the PS5. But that's a really good question. How the hell are they doing it in the cloud? Like you say, have they got a bank of PlayStation 3s, or is it just a load of Blade servers that are running it somehow? Good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you can emulate PS3 games on PC. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I don't know how good the
right?
compatibility. Yeah. But it must be possible. It's got to come, because it is a massive shame. And also what that does is it limits it to the top tier of PS Plus as well, doesn't it? You can't get the PS3 games in either of the lower tiers, because obviously it's part of the streaming service that's only available on the top. So hopefully they can improve that. I think that'll be just a nice thing for PlayStation 4 and 5 owners. Even if it's limited to PS5 because of, I don't know, power requirements for the emulation or whatever, would be nice.
I didn't bother with the top tier. Game streaming for me, yeah, that really didn't appeal to me, if I'm honest. I'm more than happy with the collection of games that I've got. What's the middle tier called? Is that extra or is that the bottom one? I can't remember.
Yeah,
No,
extra.
the bottom one's
Extra,
essentials,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I
Essential,
went with
extra,
extra.
and premium.
That's it. Yeah, no, I went with extra. And I'm having a great time. And like I say, call me a cheap arse. Although I don't think you can, because some of these games to this day are still 70 quid. So I had a dabble in Returnal. And
Just a dabble. So
Well,
Luke
I
hasn't
did-
convinced you to play
No,
it all
well,
yet?
hang on. I didn't get over the precipice of it. I've been around a few times and stuff, and thought, okay, I can probably get into this. There's lots of, okay, I'm going to sound thick here. There's lots of confusing things about it that I don't quite understand yet because I've just not played it enough. It's one of those games that you pick up as you go along, as is the case for most games, I guess. But I always had Demon Souls sort of digging its heels in the back of my head, saying, we should be playing this. So yeah, so I've switched over to Demon Souls and dropped Returnal like a stone, to be honest, at this moment in time. And I have just gone balls deep into Demon Souls, and that's where I've been for the last, I don't know, couple of weeks or whatever. So I've very nearly completed it, I think. But
So are you going to
Wow.
be jumping into
What a
like
game.
Sekiro or something at some point? Is that the next step forward in your Souls journey?
Well, okay, so forgive me if I'm wrong, because I hate stealth. I'm more of a guns blazing kind of guy. So, as far as I'm aware, Sekiro's a bit more heavy on the stealth side of things. Is that correct, Luke?
You can do stealth. It's a bit more like Elden Ring stealth, I guess. is
Oh,
the
okay.
better way.
Right.
So it's in the it's not an open world per se, but in the kind of wide linear world, you can do stealth on certain enemies. So it's an option, but when it gets to boss fights, etc., it's just
It's
straight
balls to the wall.
straight souls. Except I think Sekiro, its combat system is a bit different. It relies heavily on parry and other kind of
Bit like Bloodborne.
A bit, probably harder. I think it's. I mean, I've played all of those games. Sekiro's definitely the most difficult one.
Oh, okay.
I think it requires you to play very differently, I think, to the other games. And some bosses are very, very, very unforgiving. There's a lot of humanoid bosses in those games in Sekiro, so they tend to be super fast and stuff. It's a bit different. It's a great game, but it's definitely a step up. And especially if you go from Demon Souls, which I would consider probably one of the easiest.
It's quite an easy
games.
one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the hardest one I've played is Dark Souls 3. That was a real,
It's quite difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. I've not
Well,
completed
Sekiro's
it.
harder than that.
Right. Okay.
Oh, dear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
You know that, didn't you?
Wow. Yeah. Well, you had some comments around Elden Ring, Scott. What was your take? What was your hot
Yeah.
take on Elden Ring? Then?
It's not a particularly hot take, but I did start Elden Ring, and I got about 15 minutes in, and I just thought, I can't be arsed with this, and started playing something else instead. So, obviously, I don't have too much experience with Souls games. Dark Souls 3 is the first one that I played, and I did really enjoy it.
Did you complete
But
it?
I did complete it, yeah. However, I think it's quite a taxing game, both mentally and emotionally in some ways. And honestly, I'm not too sure I'm over that. So I started Elden Ring, and you obviously get to the bit where you first go into the open world. And there's like a wisp or something that kind of shows you roughly what direction you need to go. So I went in that direction. Some big fucker on a horse turned up and like killed us in one shot. I was like, nah, I'm not really in the mood for this right now. And then I started Final Fantasy VII. I think I need to be in the right headspace for that type of game. And when that guy on the horse killed us, it just took me back to so many painful memories during Dark Souls 3 that I'm just not in the position to move on to just yet. I will get to it eventually. I think I just need to be in the right headspace for it, and I just wasn't in that particular moment.
So for me, I mean, this has been a bit of a gaming journey for me, I guess. So with the Souls games, you battle your way through the level, and you just, you kind of scrape it with 3 pixels worth of health left, and you're running out of flasks or whatever the health mechanic is, depending what game you're playing. And then, like you say, you get through to the boss, and you've got 3 pixels worth of health, and of course, you just, he just looks at you, and you die basically. And then you obviously go back to the previous checkpoint, and you think, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got to do all that again. But you don't. You can just, what you don't realise is you can just run past most of the enemies. You don't actually have to fight them. You can just sprint past them all, get up to the fog door again, and go and do the boss with full health, all of your flasks back and whatever. So that was a bit of a learning curve for me. You don't have to fight everything, and it's the same for those. But they're called Golden Sentinels or whatever they are, the big knights on the horses. Just run past them. You don't need to tackle them at that point. And it's even more prevalent in an open world game because obviously, most games kind of channel you down corridors and stuff. And you can still just blam past things and dodge roll stuff. But in an open world, you can just take a wider arc to get there. And, I quite enjoy that bit. But obviously, that didn't strike a chord with you then.
No, and obviously, that's about 15, 20 minutes into the game. Like, it's not far, so obviously I've not given it a fair shake. But yeah, just when that happened, I was just like, oh, am I really in the mood for this right now? And because I knew I had Final Fantasy VII Remake I wanted to play, I thought, you know what, it's not. I'll go with that and I'll maybe tackle it a little bit later in the year. I think one of the problems I had is I played as just a sword and shield guy in Dark Souls 3, and I thought, right, I'm going to try and mage in Elden Ring. I think that was a mistake because not only was I tackling a new game in the genre, only my second game in the genre that I've played, I was then tackling it as a completely different class that I've never played before as well. So I think when I do go back, I'll probably just start a new character and try it as something that I'm a little bit more more familiar with.
I love the mage, and I think the internet seems to agree that it's probably the easier way to play.
Well, that's why I tried it, Pucks. I thought, oh well, if it's meant to be a little easier, then try it. But I think it was just more not being used to how to use the character more than anything, not necessarily not vibing with it. Like I say, it was a very, very brief spell I had with the game. But I spoke to a friend, and I think I might play a little bit in co-op at the beginning if you can play co-op that early, maybe just to help me get into it as well.
It's not easy. You've got to jump through so many hoops, but yeah.
It can't be any harder than Dark Souls 3 because
it's probably the same.
Honestly.
I think me and you, Flab, found this, which was a real shame, is that when you kind of think, oh, I want to do some co-op, but maybe let's just go to the earlier area and just maybe, I don't know, just kind of wander around and just do something, farm a bit or that kind of thing. But the game only lets you do co-op in the areas where you have like a great enemy to defeat. Like in the beginning area, you've got the guy on the horse, and I think I won't ruin it, but there's some other kind of larger enemies relatively far away relatively close by, I guess, but far enough away you don't see them straight away. But if you're trying to go into someone's world but they've killed them all, the game goes, well, there's no enemies for you to kill. Like, why are you trying to do this? Like, I'm not even going to let you attempt to co-op. So that was the one shameful thing for me. It's like, oh, just leave it as a permanent mode.
Yeah, I found that really frustrating in Souls 3, Pucks. Just the hoops that, like, I had to look up a guide to figure out how to play co-op. Like, I'm not someone who doesn't play co-op games very often as well, Like, that was really, really frustrating in Souls. I don't know what it's like in Elden Ring, but obviously you've got to
just as
you've got to use embers, and you can only co-op if you're embered, and yeah, it took me ages to actually get it working, which I think was, it's probably by design because I guess they've used that for a lot of their games, but it just seems unnecessarily I don't know what the word
convoluted.
is. Convoluted. Thank you very much, Flap. Just to play a game with your mate. I mean, some of the stuff, and I think you guys about this up. I think the thing you touched on, Flap, about having to just run past enemies to the boss, I still did find that incredibly, again, unnecessary and frustrating because sometimes you would run and like all it takes is for one thing just to hit you on your run past, and then you're on the floor, you've lost a lot of your health, and at that point you kind of think, oh well, I might as well just go back to the checkpoint and then try it again. So I've got full health when I get to the boss. But I think Elden Ring switches out where the bonfire, whatever it is in Elden Ring, is pretty much at the boss, so you don't have to do that.
It's much kinder than previous ones. Yeah,
which is nice to hear, because I think there was one boss. If you're doing it 2 or 3 times, fair enough. But like there was some bosses that maybe took me 15, 20 attempts. I can't remember which one it is. There's a guy with a sword in a church. I think he's like, what's his name? Like Sylvan or something like that. I can't remember. We spoke about it on the show. Like he nearly broke me during that game. It probably took me about 25 attempts. So having to do that run back from the bonfire to that foggy door that many times was as soul destroying as the actual boss fight itself, So I'm glad that changed. And like I say, I will get to it at some point.
I think the thing with the Soul games though is that they do this kind of cool thing where there's no pleasure without the pain behind it. That makes sense. You got to live the pain to experience the pleasure.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I think it's 95% frustration and anger, and 5% just pure elation. But that 5% feels that good that the 95% is almost worth it. When you finally beat that boss, that sense of relief of beating it is unbelievably satisfying. But the rest of it can be tough.
By extension, then, do you reckon that feeling is what a lot of people like? That thing when people say that, or rather from a designer's point of view, and they say things like, the players don't really know what they want until you show them it. And obviously that goes for a lot of things in the world, whether it's a product or an app feature, etc. But do you reckon it's that 5% thrill of having finally overcome a challenge, which is arguably missing from some games, which, by extension, why people, I don't know, complain about modern games being too samey or whatever else? Like, do you reckon, this is an open question, by the way, but is that something that's missing, or do you reckon it should only exist in a Souls genre and just the rest of the world should be left alone in terms of the different gaming genres out there? Because I definitely appreciate the feeling of enjoying a game, finishing it, and then kind of being like, okay, I guess I'm done, and then you then plod along onto the next thing, rather than things like Elden Ring. Again, I think like similar to Parksy in the chat, it was also my first proper Souls game, and yes, there was something about being beaten again and again and then finally overcoming the challenge, which gave you that massive thrill. And it's something that I'd not experienced much at all, not having played a Souls game much. And I think a lot of the internet, especially when it was in its prime, when it first came out and it was all over the internet, everyone's talking about the game and how amazing it is to overcome these challenges. And, oh no, you need to play it. You just got to go over that hurdle. But this is definitely a game which is looking like it's going to be game of the year, right? And it's definitely oversold and surpassed expectations from developers as well, right? So,
let me pitch you a question. And do you like roguelikes?
Oh, like procedural generation based stuff.
Not necessarily procedurally generated, just the whole mechanic of kind of getting through, powering up slightly, dying and starting again, and working your way back through it.
No.
Okay,
when I hear the name roguelike in the title, I immediately get turned off by it. So I played enough in the past to think, oh no, but no.
Did you play Hades?
I did, and I appreciate a load of people love it. I didn't dislike it, but the aspect of doing run after run bores me after a while. Despite getting further and further, it's after maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset for it. But at the time when I did play it, I just kind of thought, I don't want to keep doing this again and again. I'm done.
It's just Souls, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
As I say, it's a very similar feeling, I think.
I mean, I get that obviously if you beat a boss in Souls, you've done it. It's done forever, and there's a more linear path then. But I mean, it's essentially the same thing. It's just right. I mean, there's more.
But it feels different because
permanence more like, from run to run, but
roguelikes are more progression by repetition, whereas like for
Souls.
everything. Yeah, but it's not though. But I don't know.
No, so I disagree. Souls is just it's just a series of roguelikes, one after the other, from boss to boss to boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, but once you've done it, you haven't got to do the other shit again before you get to the next boss.
No, you haven't. I mean, you progress much further, but all of the mechanics you've learned in the meantime, and all of your pickups that you've learned, and all the power-ups, then go through to you for the next fight, if that makes sense. So you progress as you go through. I think for me, that's the thing that I like, because when you think back to when you first started and you barely had a bow and arrow and a little blooming letter opener as your main sword, to end up with this sword that's twice as big as you, and bows and arrows that can wipe out enemies in one hit.
But even from a gameplay perspective, like in a Souls game, yes, okay, yeah, you have to obviously repeat to understand the patterns and beat the boss, but you do physically go to, say, a different location, new locale, maybe see new NPCs. When in roguelike, you're thrown back to the same starting point with some more XP or whatever else, and then yes, you then have more potential to go further. But at least from my perspective, you're still going through the exact same experience, just to push a bit more at the end, and then just to go through all of that again. So I appreciate this is a bad take, but
I don't think it is, Pucks, at all. I think it's fair. Obviously, different strokes and all that. I think one of the things that maybe roguelikes have, and is it roguelike or roguelite? What's the difference?
I think a roguelite is it something to do with the power-ups that you take through?
Is it just the same
thing? Roguelike tends to be... it's a bit hard to describe, but a roguelike is something that's closer to the game Rogue, the original Rogue, in terms of difficulty, permanence, etc. A roguelite is typically something that's plays a bit like it, but as you say, Flap, it's a bit leaner in terms of the rogue elements. So there's more progression from run to run. It's more forgiving. There might be checkpoints, etc. So, like it's like Dead Cells is a bit of a rogue light, for example, rather than a rogue like.
And Hades is a rogue like.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, thanks for that, Luke. I've genuinely never really known the difference. I've often just assumed they were kind of used interchangeably.
I mean, they are to some extent, but there is actually a difference. So. Yeah.
Have any of you guys actually played the original Rogue?
No,
I'm not.
No.
Yeah.
What era? I mean, what would it be on? What era is that from?
I've got no idea, mate. But it's funny, isn't it? Because it's a genre that's named after a game. I can't think of any other genres that have...
Soulsborne games.
Oh,
yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Souls is the 1980s apparently. 1980, bang on. Apparently, is when it came out.
Bloody hell, 1980.
Yeah,
so was it an arcade game then?
Oh no, sorry, 85. But yeah, it was a
Amiga
game, I think.
Yeah, they could have just about found its way into the home.
Spectrum. Holy shit. No, that's it's older than me, that. But I guess what you're talking about, Pucks, with the variety, I guess that Souls games or Elden Ring or whatever gives you is different areas, different enemies, different NPCs, whatever. With Hades, the variety comes from your playstyle and the abilities you unlock as you go, because each run is different. Because you maybe use a different weapon.
I like that.
You obviously pick up different abilities as you go. You're kind of building a new character with each run that means you approach that particular run differently.
Maybe this is my
so
problem.
The variety comes from a different perspective. The variety is there. It's just not in the bosses or the level. It's in the play style, the weapons, and things like that.
So maybe that's my issue then, because I know when I played Hades, let's say I didn't not enjoy it or anything, just feel like it got old. But I definitely, I did play around with the different weepons and stuff. Go, let's give this a go. And
that's really surprising because I loved Hades.
And if I didn't like the weapon, I'd just go back to one I did like. So I don't know.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that because we all have a preference and stuff, and there's one that makes the run slightly easier and one that's slightly more difficult.
But then, from what Scott was saying, then maybe that's what's taken it away from me. Because if I'm not liking that certain weapon and going back to another one, or maybe I don't like the vast majority of weapons, I don't know. But if you're playing the same style, going through the same stuff, run after run after run, maybe that's why I'm not getting into it.
So, okay, so my approach to that is I would typically try and pick the same weapon and get as far with it as I can and probably complete the game. But as you're going, you're picking up other stuff that can actually help you with other weapons as well, potentially. And then you try it through with another weapon. Like you say, Scott, you have to adjust your gameplay style slightly. But actually you think, this weapon's even more powerful than the last one. I just wasn't using it right first time round.
Yeah. What was the reason for using different weapons again? I can't remember. Like a different weapon would be highlighted at the beginning of each run.
I think didn't they have a buff? I think they had a buff. So that particular weapon that was highlighted in Hades, that particular one for that run had a certain buff on it. I can't remember. Is that right? Yeah. I think didn't they drop more? I was going to say souls, whatever the equivalent of that is.
Yeah, that might be right. Luke, can you remember? because there was an incentive to mix and match your weapons with each run. I just can't remember exactly what it dropped. But even if you use the same weapon pucks, your build as you go through that weapon will change from run to run. I appreciate obviously the variety, I guess, diminishes ever so slightly if you're using the same weapon, but your build changes.
Maybe it's just the gameplay that doesn't resonate with me though, because I know Curse of the
that's
Dead Gods as well,
fair.
which is kind of similar.
I like Curse of the Dead Gods.
I was the same with that, like Hades. Like I just get bored of run after run, and it's just like, oh crap, yeah, all right, is this it?
But are you inching closer every time, or are you hitting the same?
No, I am hitting. I am progressing, but it just feels like a lot of effort to progress what feels like a tiny bit. And it's like, and I'm seeing the same stuff again. It's
that's
like
interesting.
Again, the comparison to Souls games, that you repeat a boss and it gets annoying, but like a whole new element opens up after that, whether story progression, etc. But these games, for me, is,
so one thing that gets me with Souls games, and I don't know if you've encountered this, Luke. I can only imagine anyone that's played Souls game has this. You'll play the level and you'll actually get through the boss, and then you'll continue into the next level, and you'll be playing. And all of a sudden you'll think to yourself, "Christ, I haven't died for ages," and I've gone so far into this level, and I haven't died for ages, and it gets a bit scary at that point because you think, fucking hell, I've got to start from all the way back again and stuff. And sometimes you can actually sail through the next boss as well. So, oh my God, this is brilliant. I don't know, I just get an absolute buzz out of that kind of thing.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah. I've been playing Slay the Spire as well, talking about roguelikes.
Nice.
I cannot beat that third boss. I've got to that third boss so many times, I cannot beat it.
Yeah, I've completed. I've done a couple of completed runs, and I haven't actually played that game in a while. I do need to get back to it, Flap, because it's genuinely an excellent game. That probably one of my favorite games ever. I think it's fair to say. Just the amount of enjoyment it brings is great. Speaking of hard games, though, has anyone checked out the Cuphead DLC? Because that's almost Souls-like in nature, in a way, in the sense that you're just beating your head against the wall. No one checked that out?
No. I guess Cuphead for me, I enjoyed Cuphead. Like I say, I got to the B level where you have to sort of go up the hive. I don't know why I stopped really. I should have carried on going. I think someone else took my attention at the time. But yeah, that would be a tough one to get back into, I think.
Yeah.
Depends if you love boss rush experiences. That's basically what the game is, right?
Well, yeah, but we've just been talking about that with kind of Souls and stuff. So that is obviously my bag. But with something like, I don't find Souls games frustrating because I know I'm going to die, and that's just part of the process. Whereas something like Cuphead, I get so frustrated with it. I don't know why.
You're going to die in Cuphead.
Yeah,
Surely.
Perhaps it's a mindset. Yeah, no, you're right. Perhaps it's a mindset. I just need to shift my mindset on that one. Because back in the days, you didn't really want to die in games. Whereas with, like I say, some of the modern style games, you just know you are, and that's just part of the game, I guess. But
yeah,
no.
So going back to the time when each death was 20p or whatever it was.
Well,
I remember the Metal Slug arcade machine that I sunk far too much money in, just trying to survive as long as I wanted.
20p. Imagine that. 25 goes for pound. Bloody hell.
Might have been a bit more than that. Also, it was a long time ago. So, Luke, are you interested in the Cuphead DLC out of interest? Did you enjoy the original?
I didn't actually complete the original. I got maybe halfway through it, I think, from memory. I am interested in the DLC, but I think Cuphead, I don't tend to bash my head against roguelikes or Souls games too much. Sometimes Souls games, depending on the boss, everybody struggles with particular bosses, I think, on those games sometimes. With Cuphead, I found it all very difficult all the time. So to the point of frustration, and I don't think that's the game's fault. Because it's just a difficult game. But I think almost because it's a 2D game, it can be a bit more difficult to kind of judge hitboxes and stuff. And I found that particularly difficult in Cuphead. So I'm always a bit like, oh, it's really great, but I have to kind of, as other people have said, be in a particular frame of mind. So I will get the DLC, but I don't know when. When I can face it.
I'm in the same boat. The one thing that the game's missing for me, and I've tweeted about this multiple times, is I really just wanted to have online co-op. It's got couch co-op. I don't. Well, obviously, I understand why it doesn't have online co-op. It's not like that's just an easy thing to implement, and obviously, it's a very small team. But I really think that game would benefit from having online co-op. I was hoping they would add it as like a feature with this DLC, but because it's got couch co-op, it's not like it's not a co-op game. It's got couch co-op, it just doesn't have an online mode, and I think that would make it much more fun and tolerable because you can, if someone's down, you can pick them up.
You know what? Whenever I played Cuphead in co-op, it made it twice as hard, in my personal opinion. Honestly, you got so much more stuff on the screen to see, and yeah, it made it harder for me, actually, multiplayer. I found it easier in single player, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I've completely lost my muscle memory for Cuphead, so I would almost have to start back at the beginning. I think learning the buttons and the parry and all of those kind of things.
Yeah, if I went back to it, I would have to start from the beginning. I think Flap. I don't think I'd be able to jump in from where I am.
Random question: do you reckon the game? What do you think of the game's appeal now? Because I know when it obviously first came out with the 1930s cartoon style, everyone loved it. Mainly, I think not just for that reason, obviously, but that was a large pleaser for a lot of people that this style was so aesthetically different, not really been done much before, that a lot of people were drawn into it, regardless of how difficult the game was. But it's been a good number of years now the game's been out. This DLC has arguably been way overdue. But I kind of got to a point when it was first announced, I was quite excited for it. I was quite into the game still at that point. But then since its initial reveal, it's been a good 3-4 years since then, when it was meant to be out like the year after, whatever else, and it's taken much longer than that. But for me, yes, maybe I'll jump into it at some point, but as of right now, I'm in no immediate rush to the point where it could well just pass me by and I'll just never bother, because as much as I think the art style was fantastic, I don't think a lot of people are going to be that bothered about the game for that reason. I think you just have to love the boss rush mechanic. But do you agree with that statement, or am I just thinking in the wrong mindset?
I think that's how it would be for me. It just passed me by. I've got so many other things to be getting on with.
Yeah, I think, speaking about the art style though, Pox, I think, it's been 5 years, I think, since the original game release. I'm pretty sure it was like 2017. Was it 2017? I think it's been 5 years. I'm going to quickly look that up to make sure I'm not talking out my arse, but 2017, September 2017, so almost 5 years. And I think the art style still is fantastic, and the reason it was, I think, so appealing originally is because, as you said, no one's ever done anything like that before. But I think even 5 years later, still no one else has done that. So it's still something that's really unique to Cuphead, and is still a big appeal because it's honestly, I think, one of the best looking games ever made. I think the way that they've nailed the art style and the animation, and to think that it's all hand drawn as well, is absolutely bonkers. So I think that still does hold a lot of weight. I think it is.
But you reckon people still buy the DLC for that purpose?
Well,
I'm thinking at the end of the day, the game, you have to love the gameplay to really want to spend another 15 quid or whatever it is on the DLC, right?
I think it's only like £7. I think, actually, which is probably worth mentioning. It is dirt cheap. Obviously, you've got to play the original game. It's not like it's a sequel, so obviously, if you like the first game, then I imagine the DLC is going to be appealing. Or if what you've seen about the DLC is appealing, then you'll go and buy the original game. So obviously, because you need the original with it not being a sequel, then obviously as a standalone thing, it's not necessarily going to work, because you have to play the original to a certain point to get access to the new island. But I think it's cheap enough. Like I say, I think it's like $6.99, $7.99 in the UK, that anyone who enjoyed the first game to even a small extent would still be interested in this. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I'm guessing speedrunners would love something like that as well. I don't know how big the community is speedrunning around Cuphead. I can imagine it's pretty huge.
Yeah, I imagine. I did watch. was it Summer Games Done Quick recently? One of the games done quick. I don't recall if Cuphead was on that actually. I would actually really enjoy watching someone speedrun that game. I think just to see.
That bloody that trailer for the new one that's coming up, like I say, that was just perfect. I don't think they got hit once. It's like, oh my god, that's like god tier.
Yeah, the guy who was playing that was an absolute boss.
Fucking hell. Yeah,
so
yeah, level designer, I should think. Yeah. I was just going to bring into the conversation God of War as well. Obviously, we've got a launch date for that now, and it is going to be this year. And all of the various versions of it you can get. Luke, I was just wondering what one you were going to go for, mate. Was you going to go for the top one, or because the top and the middle are kind of similar? I think it's the hammer that most people would want, and you get those in both the top and the mid tier, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a bit undecided if I'll get any version other than just the game. I don't tend to buy collector's editions anymore. Not to sound snobby, but they tend to be a bit cheap, not particularly well made. I think actually I watched the video for the God of War one, and the hammer actually looks pretty cool. Like they put some effort into it. It looks quite weighty, so that's cool. But yeah, it's kind of my tastes have evolved slightly on that front. So I'm hoping, I don't think they've announced it, but I tend to like the editions like Nintendo do, where they have like a slipcase and then an art book and maybe a special game case and like other trinkets, etc. I really like those ones. So maybe if they do something like that, I'll get that. But I'll probably just get the digital version and just leave it at that. And maybe see if there's another collectible out there to represent. I mean, there's many collectibles out there to represent God of War. So
true.
Maybe I'll have one of those.
No prices have been dropped yet either, have they? So we don't really even know what we're kind of dealing with. But.
Yeah, but there'll be. I mean, for the hammer versions, it'll be well over £100, I would think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I reckon something like 180 and 250 for the top one. Something along those lines.
Yeah, it usually kind of roughly works out about that, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's interesting. So, Puck Scott, is God of War Ragnarok not the sort of thing that's going to tempt you into buying a PlayStation 5? Because I have to say, Demon's Souls graphics, just to hark back onto that for a second, absolutely blew me away. It's like, oh my God, I didn't realise how pretty that game looked until it was, natively on my screen and stuff. What's going to be what tempts you over to get a PS5, do you think? Or if at all, Scott, because I know you're obviously playing on PC and you're relying on their PC release strategy to fulfil that side of things.
Yeah, well, we actually spoke about it last week. I was talking about my little backlog of PlayStation games on PC. Final Fantasy VII, God of War, Horizon, obviously soon to be Spider-Man, and if the rumours are to be believed, if the leaks are to be believed, Returnal as well, which to be fair, I'll probably jump straight to Returnal whenever that drops. So it doesn't necessarily appeal to me right now, but that's because I've not played the first one. I will get to the first one this year.
Wow! Oh yes, you mentioned that last week, didn't you? Yeah, you haven't played the first one.
So I imagine I'll just wait until it eventually comes to PC, because I kind of suspect the window between console and PC versions of the games is just going to get shorter and shorter.
Well, you say that, but you're still going to have to buy the PC versions. So is it not cost effective in the long run, perhaps, to get a PlayStation 5 and get the PlayStation Plus things, where you will have eventually get these things for free?
But then it's a £500 purchase of the console plus the PlayStation Plus subscription, of which you'd probably need at least the extra tier for these games, and that doesn't really appeal to me too much at this moment in time. So it might work out a little bit more cost effective in the long run, but I think I'll stick to the PC releases for the time being. And the main challenge is, first of all, just getting your hands on hardware is still unbelievably difficult. Second, and I've said this before, and I'm not taking the piss when I say it, I genuinely don't have somewhere to fit a PS5 where I would want to play it in my living room. I would have to put it like on the floor or something, which I wouldn't really want to do. I've checked, it wouldn't fit in my entertainment center, where I've got some other things at the moment, like my Switch. I've had to put my Xbox behind the TV because that's too big. So there's no room now for the PlayStation 5. So I'm hoping that maybe in the not too distant future they'll release maybe a slimmer version of the console. But for the time being, I'm happy to, like I say, play on PC, and especially considering they seem to be more committed to releasing the games on PC with the likes of
how much? I mean, I think Returnal is still selling for £70, I think. So how much are the PC versions of these games?
Just as expensive, I believe.
So it's not going to take too long before it's actually cost ineffective, if that's the case, compared to PlayStation Plus and getting a PlayStation 5. Because if these are £70 a pop, it's not going to take too many games for all of a sudden to become not worthwhile on some level.
There's also the argument for just getting a disc console and just buying the discs secondhand on sale a bit later as well. So we'll see how that pans out. I guess I would like to get one, like I say, in the not too distant future, but I'm happy with what I've got at the moment. Like I say, I've got a bit of a backlog, so maybe my opinion will change. Maybe I'll play God of War and it'll blow me away that much that I'm like, right, I need a PS5 to play God of War later this year. So we'll see how that pans out.
No, fair do. So just a quick one. We've got UK Dazarus who's listening to us in the bath. I'm not sure how I feel about it, if I'm completely honest, but there we go. And Parksy said he doesn't quite understand why, the amount of love that God of War 2018 gets. Put 10 hours into it and uninstalled it. I guess it's not for everyone. I think graphically, because I played it on the PS4, it just blew me away. I didn't think I'd ever see anything of that graphical fidelity on that particular generation. So to have a new one come along on this current generation, the now gen, it's quite exciting to me, and I liked all the gameplay mechanics. I think you do have to get into it. Again, for me, it was like, right, what's this game all about? I hadn't really played many of the previous God of Wars, but from what people have told me, they're quite a different beast anyway. But so Pux, you've got a PS4. Lots of, even God of War's coming to both, current gen and previous gen. Is there anything? What's tempting? Because we were talking in the green room that you'd like a PS5. So what's tempting you towards that? Because as far as I can think, you've got Demon Souls, Returnal. There aren't too many PS5 only titles. So the only thing apart from those would be a graphical upgrade. What's enticing you in to get a PS5?
I suppose it's the readiness, I guess, for what is coming. It goes for both platforms, really, but it's the readiness.
Future-proofing.
Again, as Scott was saying, our PS5s in particular. Again, hardware shortages, chip shortages, all that kind of stuff is still making it very even more difficult than it was when I think you managed to pre-order 3 way back whenever it was. So if I can, I'd like to, hopefully by the end of the year, I'd like to think I can get my hands on one. But equally, I'm not in a massive rush. I'd be quite happy to play God of War on a PS4 for now, knowing that I can do the upgrade in the future. I think the one game which I would definitely want a PS5 for is, I know it's not announced or anything, but it seems like it's a bit of a rumored open secret that Ghost of Tsushima 2 is being worked on in some description. And I think there was also rumored that, even if it is the case, which I'd like to believe it is going to be a PS5 only game. It's not going to be, back compat is obviously on the decline anyway. So that would be, I think, the one game that I'd need to have a PS5 in my life by the time that game releases.
Well, even if it releases on PS4?
Even if that game releases on PS4, I would definitely want a PS5 for it, yeah.
Okay, that's your tipping point, is it?
Yeah, but I'm not saying I wouldn't do it for God of War. It depends. It's easy for me to say certain things now, but it depends on the financial situation at the time, right? But yeah,
I suppose we've got Rift Apart. I don't think was on the PS4 either, was it? So
no, that was PS5 only.
Off the top of my head, there's 3 games straight away that you would benefit from having that console for, I guess. And to be honest, all 3 of those I think you would love as well. Those games, but not so much Demon Souls.
I definitely want Ratchet and Clank. At the time when it first came out, it definitely wasn't a game worth a £500 console. Not that I could afford it at the time anyway, but it wasn't quite the tipping point. But yeah, the library needed to expand a bit more, and I think, like Xbox as well, it's kind of getting to that point where we're getting into the now current gen only stuff, which is going to start really showing the power of the systems, right, and all that kind of jazz, as well as starting to build up that library again going into 2023 and 24. So that's probably my tipping point for me at the latest.
Fair enough. I mean, for me, I think the subscription services on both platforms are really important.
That's also enticed me as well on the PlayStation side.
Well, yeah, but don't forget the subscription services are in two parts. You know, when you first get it, you've got all of these brand new games to play, and it's all exciting, particularly if you've got loads of games you haven't played. And then what? For me, the interesting point will be what Sony does next and how frequently they're going to either update the service and probably more importantly, stick first-party titles. I can only imagine Ratchet and Clank's coming next, but I don't know when. How is that?
Well, a lot of people were surprised to
think,
return, weren't they? Oh, go on, Luke. Sorry.
No, it wasn't. I think there's a rumor that next month, along with Stray and others, at least to the extra and premium tiers, Final Fantasy VII Intergrade is coming. To
Okay,
yeah. So that's a big.
That would be a big one,
not first party, but I mean it's effectively first party at this point. So a big title with the DLC. So that's for people who don't have. That's a great addition for people. That has a really great PS5 port as well. Really, really good. So I think that's good. And as you say, it'll be interesting to see what they add. I think they won't rush into adding first party because I think they want to burn through the as many sales as they can of this stuff. But Ratchet can't be too far away. I don't think maybe this year. But they might want to save stuff. They might not, so they can have a proper cadence of this stuff. It'll be great when that game comes to the service as well. I think for people because that's a terrific game.
Exactly that. I was expecting Ratchet and Clank to be part of the lineup, but when it wasn't there, it's like, oh, okay. Well, they're holding that back for a slightly later date. Then,
in terms of announcements, I think Sony have said that obviously the monthly games are announced on the last Wednesday of the previous month for the next month to roll around or whatever. But then for the extra plus premium stuff, whatever it's called, that's been like late into the month or something is when they get refreshed or updated. So I think a lot of people are wondering, well, when are we going to find out about the first refresh then, since it's all launched? And I think a lot of people are expecting it in the next week to 2 weeks to see what these announcements are. So it'd be interesting to see how they kick off the first refresh, I guess.
Yeah. I imagine they'll probably try to go quite strong because they'll obviously want to convert as many just regular PlayStation Plus customers over to either extra or premium. In order to do that, they're going to have to go pretty hard with the additions. I think we don't know what the uptake on the extra and premium tiers has been so far. I imagine pretty good because the library seems excellent. But if depending on how that's going, they may be more tempted to bring things forward or something just to help, increase the pace of that conversion or that uptake. So, but Luke's right. If something like Final Fantasy VII Remake comes, that's an excellent get. I think that would be a pretty good statement of intent from PlayStation, maybe to show us what to expect. Sort of month on month, if we're getting games like Stray Day One, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Intergrade, I think that shows that they're pretty committed to it. Because if you look at PlayStation Plus, their monthly offering there is generally pretty good, especially as someone who doesn't have a PlayStation, and I look at games with gold and compare the two, and they're not even close. So if they have a similar quality of monthly games on extra and premium, I think that'll be pretty good for the service. And those leaks are pretty accurate as well. And every month, I'm pretty sure. Look, if I'm right, those leaks nail them. I don't know how they do it, but I'm pretty sure they get them right.
It's always it's usually some it's Brazil or something like that, like the Brazilian PlayStation tweets it like 7 days early, or it's just found out 7 days. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, they're usually pretty accurate. So I think you can expect Final Fantasy VII the next round.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've been holding out for that, so I've not played that one, so yeah, I'll wait for that. You mentioned something earlier, Scott, around getting the disc version. Obviously, because you can go and buy the disc versions of games a lot cheaper, but obviously it popped out this week that there's some licensing issues around some PlayStation owners that have bought films and TV box sets and stuff. potentially losing access to those. I know it's not quite the same as games, but it does demonstrate the vulnerability of digital purchases and the licensing around those and stuff. A bit disappointed to hear, to be honest. I think it's only in Germany and Austria, and perhaps there's very specific things going on in that particular territory. I don't really know, but it's always a bit disappointing to hear, digital purchases of things being sort of revoked and no longer having access to them. It doesn't leave a particularly good taste in the mouth, does it? Because some of these other things that we've potentially paid for digitally could at some point just not be available to us. And I know it's an age-old argument, this one, but here we are with a live demonstration of it to some degree.
It's a massive shame. I think obviously this isn't necessarily too uncommon where things are maybe delisted. That happens regularly. We see on Game Pass like Forza. Those games are delisted because licenses with music or cars in particular run out. The reality with this one is, though, even if you've previously purchased the game, you now no longer have access to it. So it's not like they're just preventing people from purchasing that particular content. If you previously purchased it, you no longer can access it. And I guess that is one of the risks of our all digital future. And it really highlights the fact that we're not buying anything really here. We're purchasing a license that gives us the ability to access it, and the terms and conditions effectively give them license to revoke that access at any particular time. I've seen, I guess this is on a slightly different topic, but I've seen people who've had their Xbox accounts banned for one reason or another, whether the ban was justified or not, fair enough, but you lose access to your library in a lot of cases at that point. And it kind of really does highlight the risks that you guys have, or not you guys, everyone has, myself included. I'm 100% digital now. I've actually, if I open my drawer to my left, I've currently got, this is my entire physical game collection. I can probably count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I've got 21 physical games. And all of those the majority of them are Switch games. That's my entire physical game library. So if anything was to happen, then goodbye games. Which is a shame. So hopefully it's not a sign of things to come, and it's just a one-off.
Well, I'd like to think as a consumer we could and should be protected on some level. Luke, is there any way that there could be any governance around this, do you think? And I don't know about force companies, but at least make it clear to people that are buying these things digitally that actually at some point in the future you may no longer have access to this.
Well, I mean, you are told about that when you sign up for any of these stores, T's and C's effectively, that it's all evolving digital licenses. You could lose access to your content. I mean, there perhaps should be made clearer on sign up, but.
So if I was to go into the Xbox store and buy something digitally, I don't have to tick an agreement.
No, but you're using the store, so effectively you're submitting yourself to whatever the terms and conditions of the store are.
There'll be something that says upon completion or by completing this purchase, you are agreeing to these terms and conditions.
Exactly.
There'll be something.
You get you get that. You get like that checkbox on PlayStation as well. Very similar. And it's up to you if you read it or not. Essentially. I mean, it's just one of the foibles of consuming digital content effectively. Like that, there's not really much, I guess, consumers can do about it. I mean, maybe if it got to the point where it was kind of ridiculous, withdraw all of things that you've bought en masse in short time frames, they would, probably regulators would step in and think about what could be done.
It feels like we're a long way from that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't see that happening unless something totally ridiculous happens, to be honest. But I think, with those films it's not Sony's fault that's happened. This is Studio Canal with Paddington, John Wick. They just said, look, our licensing has changed with a content provider. It seems like they may be pulling it from basically a lot of storefronts to put it in something else. So it looks like that's maybe what's happening. And they've just withdrawn the films. So nothing really Sony can do about it. It's not their license. So it's a shame for people. I don't know who has been rushing out to buy Paddington digitally on PlayStation, but there you go. So when it gets to games, I think it will impact people more. I think the only game that I can think of that does this in recent memory is probably Forza Motorsport, where after a certain while it's not at least purchasable because licenses have expired from many years ago, and car models, music, etc.
Yeah,
So
they pulled Deadpool as well for a similar reason, I think.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So it doesn't typically tend to happen with games, but it can do. So I think just be vigilant about it, and but there's not really much recourse. If you do, I think it's just the risk you take. It's just kind of that's something that if the way to mitigate against it is to buy physical if you want to do that. And that will get you around it some part of the way, but. Yeah,
but in the world of
some
subscriptions,
well, yeah,
that's an entirely different. I guess it's a similar situation, but if that subscription just ceases to exist, with Game Pass, how much in 5 years' time people will have spent however much on their Game Pass subscription, and then Microsoft one day could just say, actually, Game Pass isn't available anymore, and then. But that's the risk that you take with Spotify, Netflix. It's kind of the future that we're going for. Just on the subject of the terms and conditions, just very quickly, I've just gone to Xbox.com. When you go to buy a game, it says by selecting buy, you agree to store terms of sale, including usage rules for digital goods. And obviously they're both links. And then in one of theirs, in bold, it says you may lose access to your capabilities of you may lose access to all capabilities of digital goods or have the nature of your access changed, if any, and then it lists a whole host of reasons as to why they could revoke your access to that game. So, it's just the risk that
scary.
That take.
A bit scary when you put it in those terms, but like you say, it's always been there. It's nothing new, I guess. But do you know Psychonauts 2 has only just, I think this week, just had a physical release? It was digital only up until this past week, I believe. I never even realised that. Yeah, that's it. There you go. Yeah. So, I mean, there are games that you don't even get physical releases of, and obviously particularly indie games. There is no physical release.
That's one of the reasons why it's actually... I'm pleased, although I personally won't take advantage of it. It's why I'm pleased Xbox are now working with limited run games. They've typically been heavy on Switch and PlayStation, and Xbox didn't work with them up until recently, which meant some games that previously only had digital releases did get physical releases on PlayStation and Switch. Thankfully, Xbox are now working with limited run games, so there will be some physical releases of those indie games if they do them, which is nice. But you're right, some games you just physically do not have the ability to purchase them physically, which again is a little scary.
Just the world we live in, I guess. Pucks, I know this is a topic close to your heart, and you also will need to get underway if you can. But any closing thoughts on that one?
What, digital sales? You mean digital purchases?
Yeah, just in general.
Well, I know I've said in the past that I love buying physical, but I have, especially in recent months, I have been going more and more digital. I think the only system I do seem to mostly stay physical is Switch, as the others have said. But I've not bought a physical Xbox game, obviously, since Game Pass and stuff, and even things like Elden Ring I had digitally as well. Again, PlayStation, having now access to the PS Plus service, obviously all that's digital. I think the only games I may well be buying in the future, even then, it might even be physical. But I think Modern Warfare 2, in terms of buying another game, because I'm looking forward to that one, I'll probably end up just doing that digital as well, because it's getting to more and more to a point for me where, what's the point? Because I have an instant library here, if I can just download it, it's just much easier and a lot more convenient. I know a couple months ago, I wasn't saying this quite so strongly, but things change. And yeah, apart from Switch, which I think is not that I'd ever sell a load of games in bulk necessarily. I never know what the future holds, but I don't know. Switch games tend to hold their value, dare I say, well, Nintendo stuff in general, especially first-party stuff. If for no other reason, that's one reason why I'd like to buy physical. But now outside of that, the convenience of digital is the way the world is going. But I equally agree that it could potentially be more and more of a minefield if, as you say, you accidentally do something, or maybe I don't know, maybe you're not awake in a particular night and you accidentally click a spam link and then your account gets hacked and you've lost all your access. And the amount of horror stories I've seen online of people who have innocently somehow lost access and just can't regain it because the automated systems just ignore you effectively. And that's across all different platforms.
One of the biggest offenders of that is actually on the Quest and Quest 2 with Meta and Facebook. There was some... Because, I know they're not necessarily quite as gaming focused as perhaps Xbox and PlayStation, should we say. I know they've got quite a successful platform going on there with the Quest 2 and stuff, but because it used to be linked to your Facebook account, if ever you did anything that the Facebook didn't like and the Facebook police came along and struck your account, then that would include all of your Quest games and everything you've purchased up until then as well. With, like you say, with no comeback. You'll be talking to a robot and, there's only a certain amount of times before they come back and say, computer says no, and that is the end of the matter. And it's like, oh, okay, brilliant. Buying into a new ecosystem does have its own risks. And I think we're relatively safe with Sony and PlayStation, not perfectly so, as has been demonstrated this week. But like Luke said, that seems to be like external influences that have caused this particular issue. But I think with PlayStation games and stuff, Xbox games and Nintendo, as long as it's within their control, we'll be okay. But something like a new ecosystem coming along, that would be worrying. That would be worrying.
Meta's a good example of that, as you say, isn't it? Because that all exists outside of your gaming realm, so to speak. Whereas PlayStation, arguably PlayStation, Xbox. If if you're online constantly bullying people, you may get a temporary ban or that kind of stuff. But I've sometimes seen articles of people complaining they've been banned because they've openly hacked their system to try to, do you know what I mean? Like try to circumvent all the security walls, and then they complain why they've been banned and lost all their access. Is it because you've obviously voided your agreement.
but at least they're pissing around with their own account with Facebook, and they have addressed this now. I think you can own a Quest without having to link it to your Facebook account. But of course, you're linking an external account, technically external.
It's still a Meta account though, Flap. It might not be Facebook, but it's a Meta account still. No, I saw the announcement. I was like, well, what changes? You got a Meta account. Your Meta account will be linked to Facebook, whether directly or indirectly. But
the thing is, if you screw up your Facebook account, it then won't affect your Meta account. Apparently, because the accounts previously were linked, it would affect both. But like you said, don't forget, linking it to a social media platform is quite dangerous because people, as we know, can be quite keyboard warriors and quite vocal on social media platforms. And if that is directly linked to your gaming platform, this would be a good example. Imagine if you had to have your Twitter account linked to your either Xbox or PlayStation account. You might find people behave themselves quite a little bit more on Twitter if there was the risk of them losing all of their games and stuff on Xbox. Be an interesting one, wouldn't it? But that's kind of what we're talking about, I guess.
Yeah.
Puxy just put Stadia as a perfect example if Google pulled a plug. And say goodbye to the games, I guess.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues I always had with Stadia is their business model just didn't seem right, because not only have you got to pay a subscription to access the games, this may have changed. I appreciate if this is outdated. Apologies. Not only do you have to pay a subscription to get access to the games, you've then got to buy the games.
Yeah.
And if it goes completely tits up, which it effectively has, then there is a real risk that you've spent money on these games. And I guess if it's a subscription, it's a little bit of an easier pill to swallow. If it was just you pay X a month and you get access to these games, then if it was to go away, some to Game Pass, I guess I say that is a slightly easier pill to swallow, because it's like, well, if I got rid of my Spotify account to switch to I don't know, Deezer or whatever, no, fair enough. I haven't purchased anything. But that is the world we live in.
You've actually.
Well, let's just
go on. I was just say the whole Google stuff. 'Cause I know in America, Amazon also released their own gaming thing, didn't they? And then when that was first announced, was like, is it going to be released elsewhere in the world? And I don't know. We've heard nothing of it since. So I'm wondering if it's in the same boat as Stadia, where it's like, they've come to the realization that they're not games companies. Games companies run completely differently, but we're not going to change our infrastructure for that. So we'll just kind of let this project slowly live on life support. But then, as you say, then you have that risk of people who have made those big purchases on there because games aren't cheap.
But Luna is
just
on the Amazon the Luna service that is more akin to Game Pass, so you can't actually buy games on Luna.
Oh, okay.
As far as I'm aware, it's purely a subscription. But the way they work it is you kind of got Luna, which is, I don't know, $10 a month or whatever, and you get access to a section of games like Game Pass. But then what you can do is you can buy what they call, I think they refer to them as channels. So I think the main one, there's probably more now, but Ubisoft had a channel. So you would pay a base $10 a month, and then you could pay maybe an extra $5 a month or something, and that will give you access to Ubisoft games. So it's essentially like a Ubisoft Plus add-on to your Luna subscription, but it is purely subscription based. You can't, as far as I'm aware, you can't actually purchase just outright any game on Luna, which like I say is kind of what I more expected Stadia to be.
Okay, well, let's just end on a very quick one. E3. Let's talk about E3. Anyone surprised to see that they're trying to come back again next year?
I wasn't super surprised to see it because I kind of felt like there was rumblings about it returning anyway. But I think a lot of people are obviously now questioning, how good is it going to be? So I think some of the brief news that I did read up about it when it was first announced was that it's now being controlled by a completely different production company or whatever else. I don't know if the full specifics.
Yeah, it's Reed Pop, the guys who do PAX.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But yeah, I don't know, because Summer Games Fest for next year has obviously already been announced as well.
Yeah.
He was very quick on that one. So
he wanted people to know that was in person, didn't he? That did make us laugh.
I don't know if I'm surprised.
Is there space for both? Is there space for both of them? I'm guessing there isn't.
Well,
or is there?
If E3 is able to bring back all of them, as in the big three, all in one camp, then
I don't think they can.
Maybe there is a place. But yeah, as you're all nodding and stuff already, I don't think they can at this point either.
I don't think they can.
I think enough is
PlayStation
will go in their own way.
Won't be back because they were already out of E3 beforehand.
Yeah.
Even Xbox was out of E3. I appreciate they're still part of the ESA, but their event was always separate. Wasn't always. They had their own event that went alongside E3 that your E3 ticket would give you access to, but it was in a different center. It was a completely different venue.
It tended to be the night before the main event, didn't it? So it tended to be a Sunday night, I think, and then E3 was on the Monday. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Nintendo was the big one that always had a really big show floor presence, I should say. I think they were arguably the biggest. I think the last E3, physical E3, I think Microsoft had a Mixer booth, like on the actual E3 show floor, and then they had their own thing. Because if I remember rightly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember the Xbox stage had all of the consoles or PCs on the stage. Mm-hmm. And that's where their show floor was. They just invited people on the stage after the show. Like I said, and then on the actual E3 show floor, they had a Mixer booth of all things. So.
I mean, I actually really liked Mixer. It's a shame that got killed.
Me too, mate. Me too. I'm still a little salty about that because I've used Twitch recently, like during the Summer Games Fest or whatever to stream events, and the Mixer quality was always just and latency was always just significantly better than Mixer. Than Twitch.
Luke, what are your thoughts? Oh, sorry, just asking Luke, but
yeah. Well, again, perhaps I'll pitch this to Luke. I'm just, is there enough space for both Summer Games Fest and E3? I don't think there is, and if there isn't, which one's going to lose out? And I think it's going to be E3, if I'm honest. But what do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think it's really hard to tell what E3 looks like now. I think it's ReedPop, isn't it, that are effectively taking over duties on organisation and all that stuff. So I think in terms of a show floor element, it will be pretty much as it was, very close, that sort of thing. I think they're very good at that. I don't know what the conference element of E3 looks like. It probably won't look anything like it has in the past because it already started to pivot away from that anyway because of people just dropping out. And then Summer Games Fest, I think that will continue to do what it's doing. It's more of a sort of malleable environment than E3. I think Keeley's kind of fluid in how he likes Summer Game Fest to be and how it does its quote unquote events and integration with other publishers and platform holders, etc. So it'd be really interesting to see actually what next year looks like. And especially the Summer Game Fest in-person stuff, because it did have some of that this year, but it was very small, and it was kind of press only, effectively. So it seems like he wants like more of a proper show floor thing. And to be fair to Keeley, he mentioned this before E3 announced their big comeback, so I think he just wanted to drop it again to remind people that this is something that Summer Games Fest is doing as well. So we'll see what it looks like. I don't know. I'm kind of glad E3's back in some presence because, it's nice. It's nice to mark your calendar with that stuff, even if it's not quite going to be the same. And I'd always, a bit of a bucket list to actually go there. So I think if it's back in some capacity, I'd really like to actually try and get there at some point. I think it's just interesting. It's just, but it's so hard to judge because what does it look like? What does all this look like next year? I mean, who knows? I do find it funny as well because now you seem to have these like proxy fanboy wars that arise now where people are like, yay, freeze back because it's like a kick for Keeley. It's like, right, we hate Keeley, so we're glad that there's like how bizarre, like this disdain for Jeff Keighley's like created E3 fanboys unbelievably. So I found that quite funny. Who knows what they look like?
I don't know if you touched on it, Luke. Sorry, go on, Flap.
No, it's just as long as we get our healthy dose of brand new games, announcements, and things like that, then I'm not massively fussed who is the purveyor of those things. I just as long as we get that as a gaming community, then I don't care. Like I say, which quarter that comes in from, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah, exactly. I think what we'll probably find is both E3 and Summer Games Fest will claim events as being part of their own. I think that happened a couple of times where Xbox was both a Summer Games Fest and an E3 event. We'll likely get similar things with any event that happens around that time. PlayStation might not, because PlayStation actually had the Summer Game Fest logo, I think, on their stream beforehand, but they've obviously not been involved with the ESA for some time, so maybe that's an exception, but I imagine there'll be a little bit of that going on, and honestly, there won't be too much different for us. The people who aren't going to these in-person events, I don't think we'll really notice much of a difference, because if you think of E3 in years gone by, it's just a collection of showcases, a collection of announcements, which
for us
all Summer Games Fest is a collection of announcements with an additional show in the middle that is maybe good at best. I don't think those showcases have been particularly great, mainly because the publishers want to have their own showcase to show their good stuff, understandably so. So it's the in-person stuff that's going to be the big differentiator, and the feedback from the media who attended the Summer Games Fest this year, which was their first dabble into the in-person event, they seemed really pleased. The feedback was really, really good, and that was only their first attempt. It was relatively small, but it seemed like the what they had put on was really well received by the media, and that's going to be the challenge for E3. Is if Jeff Keighley can do something in person, and if he can grow that next year, then what is there going to be for why would somebody go to E3 show floor rather than Summer Games Fest show floor or whatever it ends up being? Yeah.
Interesting. The game showcase side of things has got some competition going on. And like you say, hopefully we'll be the winners of that. But I just hope there isn't this desperate struggle for, like you say, fanboyism and people trying to pitch to one and not the other. And just as long as we as
desperate fanboys, Flap.
Well,
you know
yeah, true. Yeah, no, true. But as long as we, in general, is the gamer community, are winners out of this, then, like I say, who cares? But yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Bring back the Konami E3 showcases. That's what I say. We need the one thing that I've missed about them being more digital is, and I understand why. If I was in charge of any of these companies, there would be no chance I would want to do anything live. But as a fan, I do miss the live in person things a little bit because of because of just the potential for humor. I think that some of them bring. I don't think we'll ever see those days again, but we can dream.
We wouldn't have ever got there. Is it Kaziari, the Ridge Racer thing? And there was some comical moments there. Is it Peter Moore with the GTA 5 logo tattooed on his arm? Just, all kinds of silly stuff like that goes on. But,
Oh, on E3, one very final thing, actually, and this is more for Luke. Luke, did you see that they're going to release the Halo 2 E3 demo on Master Chief Collection for modders? Which absolutely really cool. Blows my mind that they're going to be doing that. Is incredible because that's on a different engine. It's not even on that engine. So the fact that they're going to get that working, that was a really, really cool piece of news. Sorry, just had to put that in there.
That was such an amazing demo as well back in the day. It was seeing it. I mean, obviously it wasn't real. Well, I mean, it was real, but not in any way indicative of what we got in the game. But yeah, that's going to be a trip, actually, being able to play that. Because I assume models will quickly make it very playable. So, it's going to be very strange.
It's kind of cool when technology, modern day technology allows you to hark back and do kind of cool things like that, without a doubt. Fantastic. Well, thank you. I think we're going to round it up there. I know Pucks needs to be on his way. But, just a collection of chat and topics, I guess. Nothing huge landing this week. Perhaps the gaming gods will give us something huge to talk about next week. But, no, thank you, GPG Crew. I've had a good time. Chat, thank you very much for being here, whether you were in the bath or not in the bath. Like I say, I appreciate you guys hanging around and listening to what we do.
Hopefully he's not in the bath anymore.
It might be out of the bath by now. You'd like to think so. It'd be out wrinkly otherwise. Surely it'd be wrinkly by now. But no, thank you for that. Okay, we'll try and bring you as many shows as we can. I know it's been a little bit up and down lately. My work schedule has gone nuts. And obviously, fantastic weather. Numbers are slightly down today, but who can blame people when there's a lovely day out there and they could be doing other things like going to the beach or whatever it is that they're doing. So thank you for being with us if you have tuned in. Obviously, the numbers creep up after the show. And if there is anything that you've heard and you disagree with or do agree with, stick some comments down below. Hit the like, share and subscribe buttons if you're not already subscribed and done those things. And like I say, we'll try and bring you a show as frequently as we possibly can, and we'll let you know on the socials one way or the other. And whatever it is you're doing, stay safe, happy gaming, and we will see you on the next one.